Hello Rapunzel Nation! I'm going to do a tutorial for you today on how to use the Rapunzel scarf called the Belle of the Ball. An absolutely stunning, beautiful, very fancy scarf, which if you've ordered it or you're thinking about ordering it, you'll probably have very similar reaction to me where I took this absolutely beautiful scarf out of its envelope, promptly put it in my closet for 2 months, because I had no idea what to do with it because it's so beautiful, but it's also a very odd texture and length and sort of bulkiness. I've played around with it for a little while and I found something that sort of seems to work. It's very comfortable to wear. I've wore it all day, 8 hours plus at work. And I hope that, you can use this technique and wear your own Belle the Ball or something similar. It would have to probably be something very heavy, bulky, thick, and textured, I think, for this to work. But give it a go. I'm excited to see, this tutorial on everybody, this not on everybody. So what you need is a Belle the Ball or something similar, and a long, thin, rectangular scarf. In this case, it's a slate blue 2-in-1 that I have. I find 2-in-1s work best. Color choice is up to you, but it does have to be something very thin because the Belle of the Ball is very bulky, and if you start with a bulky scarf on underneath, you're going to have a lot of bulk kind of in and around this area. I'm wearing a Wendy underneath. You see I've got it sort of ready. It's about less than half stuffed with a Oomtastic scrunchie. I found that the Wendy works the best for this particular scarf because it needs a lot of surface area to spread out or it gets very bulky. I don't know if you could do this without any volume at all, without a shaper at all. You might be able to do it with an ultimate, but feel free to play around. I'm interested to see everyone's take on it. Basically, you need to start off with your underscarf. Now, though the Belle of the Ball is a little bit easier, the underscarf does have to be tied in a very particular way. So you need to make sure you have one short end and one long end. But the short end has to be long enough that you can still wrap it all the way around and tuck it underneath the knot. When you're doing it play around, when I typically tie it, I typically have, it's too short the first time or something and I have to kind of change it around, and that's totally okay. But you need a long end. And you have to make sure, that whichever end you want long, you're doing opposite because of course they crisscross. So for me, I like to have my long end on this side. So I'm going to put it on this side so when I switch, it is correct. So I find, for the short and the long, I'll typically sort of test it and drape it. So this one, is going to definitely be long enough to wrap up, maybe a little bit longer. And once you sort of got it where it's going to work out, just fold it to fit your head, pull it up, gather a knot like you would any other scarf. I find you do have to knot this in this particular case. You can't crisscross because you do have to tuck under the short end of the scarf. Okay, perfect. So now you've got it knotted. You don't have to worry about it being too neat because of course you're going to be putting the Belle of the Ball over top of it. So now you're going to take your short one and do it up like a normal regal, though I do recommend folding all the fringy bits in before you wrap it, because you'll find because it's shorter, it's not quite long enough to do a normal regal tuck, so the fringes kind of get everywhere, and so you don't want them to do that. You do want them to go over. So you can see that they're sort of here, and you just sort of fold down, because like I said, of course, this doesn't have to be neat, because you're just tucking it into the knot behind. Perfect. So essentially we're wrapping to get rid of it. I also find it helps fill the holes sometimes. If you've got a bit of lumps and stuff in your Wendy, it makes it a little bit more round. But now you have this awesome long end, which is perfect. You need it to be quite long, so thereabouts, arm span or such, seems to be effective because you need enough at the end of the scarf in order to do the knot. So now you're going to take your Belle of the Ball, absolutely beautiful scarf. There are a couple ways you can do this. If you like asymmetrical finished ends, tie it the same length. For me, I like my ends to be the same length, or my tails, I should say, to be the same length. So I tie it slightly off center because I enjoy having, you know, my tail's exactly the same, and I have a bigger head, so I have to give more length to the tail that I'm wrapping up for it to be the same length as, of course, the tail that's down. So you're going to bring Belle the ball, and again, your long end will be opposite of where this long scarf currently is, because of course it will switch. And sort of bring it where you want it. Now you've got this here. So I've learned with this scarf that you cannot tie it. You can't fold it. It's sort of very bulky and it doesn't really fit the convention. So you can see here how it's a little too big. So I've tried to, you know, fold like this when I go to gather, and it just doesn't seem to work. So what you're going to do is you're going to gather and crisscross. And the key here is do not be afraid of this scarf. It feels very delicate despite its sort of weight and bulkiness, but you really just sort of have to show it who's boss. So when you go to gather it, just, you know, gather. So I'm going to turn around so you can see how that looks. So you're going to get it sort of where exactly you want it to sit up at the front here. So I bring the scalped edges all the way up to the front. Then perfect. So you can see, you know, aggressively gather, pull. A nice little trick to keep it tight is to stick the short end into your armpit when you're wrapping, because then it keeps, you know, the thing from unraveling. Though I do find that the scarf is so heavy, it sort of keeps itself here. So, you know, find what works best for you. So now you've got, you know, your long Belle of the ball end, short Belle of the ball end, and your long 2-in-1 end. Now the key is you need as little as bulk possible in this beginning stage because it gets quite bulky once you know, go over. So you need to keep it as thin as you can, you know, to your shaper. So now we're going to bring up our Belle of the ball end like you would a normal regal. Just fold the ends in. Sometimes it cannot listen to you, and that's okay. The upper battle with our ends. And you're going to bring it over sort of how you want it to look. Now, don't be too particular about its placement because you are going to be adjusting it when you bring the Belle of the ball over, but, you know, get it sort of where you want it to. And again, as little sort of bulk as possible here. And then you're just going to leave this hanging. That feels counterintuitive because we're used to tucking, but just sort of leave it there. Now, you're going to bring up the Belle of the ball end. So again, the scarf is super bulky. You can't fold it. It doesn't position itself. You really have to sort of show it who's boss and very, you know, strategically place everything. So for me, I literally just flip it up, you know, so I can get the front looking exactly how I want the front to look. So, you know, move the 2-in-1 around. Perfect. So now you can see the front has this lovely layered look. It's nice and flat. It's not bulky. It's sort of exactly, you know, how I want it to look. But you can see here, look at this back. It's crazy, right? I mean, heck, you could leave it down like that. It's kind of a pretty veil, quite lovely. But, you know, I wanted it to be all up. So you're just going to sort of very, you know, on purpose, position the scarf. So you're just going to fold it up. You know, do however you want it to look. You can't get it super tight, so don't worry too much about that. This is what I was saying about the bulkiness. As you can see, it's quite bulky right now, and it's just going to stay that way because you just can't get it very tight. But, you know, you're going to fold and place because you really do have to do this yourself. You do have to place it yourself because it will not do that on its own. And the nice thing about it being on the 2-in-1 is it's actually really easy to move around on the front. So even if it slips, you can just sort of move it back. Okay, so when you've got it sort of how you want it, if I was leaving the house, I'd be far more picky about all this, of course. And you've got it how you want it. You now have this end down here, and of course the, you know, the two tails. So just like you're going to do beginner's luck, you're going to bring this up and you're going to cross it because, as I've said, you really just Maybe if you're better with scarves, you could tie it, but I cannot tie this scarf. So I've learned crisscrossing is my friend. So you're just gonna crisscross it. And you'll see that the two tails here are crisscrossed, which is awesome. And they're up. And it also brings this sort of tail away from your neck. Because this is sequency, it can get a bit itchy if you don't sort of keep it away from your skin. So I found that that helps that really well. And then you've got this wonderful sort of long 2-in-1 end. You can see how much length it has left, you know, a good couple of inches, because you do need to wrap it around a few times. So what you're going to do is you're going to bring the 2-in-1 under, so under the crisscrossed bell of the ball, and around like so, kind of giving it some strength and stability. Then you're going to find, you know, the 2-in-1 sort of pocket here. There we go. So now we've got that. And you're going to pull it through. Of course, sometimes it does not pull through very nicely, but that's okay. Yeah, perfect. So now you've got this sort of crisscrossed, tied thing. Now, you could literally finish the tie up and leave it here. You know, it's sort of up to you at this point. For me, I really do enjoy focusing on the bell of the ball tails rather than, you know, any of the other color. So I do like to put it away. So here's how we do that. So you're going to take this and bring it to the side. So you're going to pull it back like this. So it creates that really pretty loop sort of on top of the 2-in-1 end that's there. And then you're going to find the pocket for this, you know, first sort of loop, and you're going to pull through. And now you can see you've got this really pretty, almost Trinity looking knot, and I like it because it breaks up the silver, so it makes it a little softer for your face, a little easier to use. Now you could again just leave this here if you want the other color. I don't. I like keeping it, you know, tucked behind. So same thing. I'm just going to fold all the fringy ends up. The best thing about the bell of the ball is it's such a thick scarf, you can really just hide things in it very easily. So now you're going to bring this sort of down, and then that's that whole, you know, complicated 4-knot looking shape that I had previously, but of course it's quite simpler than it looks. Sorry, just have a cat trying to eat a string in front of me. And you're just going to bring this around and tuck it in the sort of bulky back end of the bell of the ball. So I'm just going to turn around so you can see that. So perfect. You can see that it hides it excellently, and you've got this very beautiful sort of complicated knot. The bell is brought up away from your skin, and the tails are sort of equal, you know, in length and fringes sitting down together, and you can make them asymmetrical. When you're done, go through and adjust however you want it to look. Like I said, wherever the folds are, wherever you want them to be, sort of where your face shape, you know, is most happy. And then you've got this very fancy, you know, disco ball, wonderful scarf, and, you know, you've got a very nice sort of knot that looks very complicated, but is very simple. So go forth and wrap boldly, and I'm excited to see everyone's bell of the balls.